This weekend I got a chance to watch two pilot episodes for new animated projects, Unicorn Warriors Eternal and Lackadaisy. Both were interesting enough, so I decided to make a video just discussing these two projects. And I'm gonna start with Unicorn. This is a brand new cartoon series by Genndy Tartakovsky. The first two episodes were released exactly when I was watching the final episode of Primal and raging over it. So I have a lot of Genndy Tartakovsky in my life these days. I might not be the biggest fan of Genndy's art style, I really disliked Emma's design, but I am glad nonetheless that Tartakovsky does have his own unique style. When you see Genndy's cartoon, you know it's his work, even if it's something like Hotel Transylvania. You know it's Tartakovsky. While other Western cartoons either look like Gravity Falls or try to emulate anime, sometimes to an extent when you can barely distinguish an American product from its Japanese counterpart, Genndy remains loyal to his own vision, which was heavily influenced by old comic books and old cartoons from the 30s and 40s. Emma's design particularly reminds me of Betty Boop, especially when she turns into Melinda. Almost the same proportions of body and head. If you compare these two characters side by side, you can't not see those similarities between them. If you look closely, you may also find many similarities between Unicorn and Japanese projects like Astro Boy and Kimba the White Lion. Both were created by Osamu Tezuka, a great Japanese animator and manga artist, whose works were also inspirations for Unicorn Warriors Eternal. The show takes place in 1890 London, and I am yet to discover why Genndy seems to be so obsessed with this particular year. The Primal Theory episode of Primal also takes place in 1980 England. The setting of the show is steampunk. Tartakovsky worked with mostly the same crew that was also working on Primal, the same writers and the same composers at least. No surprise that many elements of Primal migrated to Unicorn as well. The most obvious one is a huge zombie elephant rummaging through streets of London in the second episode. This elephant looks like it was borrowed from Primal. It is a weird mixture of mammoth from episode 3 and zombie sauropod from episode 7. As for the story, it's hard to tell much so far, only 2 episodes have been released. But the story isn't gonna be overly complicated, since Unicorn is just 7 episode miniseries. Maybe this is for the best. Tartakovsky is a great animator who really loves animation, but he struggles to write proper endings to his stories. I haven't seen Samurai Jack yet, but I read that the finale was very disappointing. I can confirm that the finale of Primal was quite bad, unfortunately. Maybe working with a 7 episode miniseries was easier for Genndy and Unicorn won't suffer like his previous works. Overall, Unicorn looks very interesting. Tartakovsky loves to mix different elements that, at first glance, should not work very well together, like zombie dinosaur and Vikings, but he manages to make them all work nonetheless. The second pilot I watched was Lackadaisy. I kept hearing about Lackadaisy online, so I felt obliged to check it out myself, and what can I say? Just as I expected, the animation looks absolutely delicious. Making this pilot took 3 years and 160 animators from all across the world who crowdfunded this pilot. It is based on a webcomic by the same name, which I never read or even heard of, to be honest. So I cannot judge this animation pilot by how good or bad it was in comparison to its source material, though at first glance the comic looks absolutely fantastic. The pilot doesn't give off much in terms of plot, obviously. The story takes place in 1927 St. Louis, Missouri during Prohibition. Our main characters are a trio of smugglers who smuggle alcoholic drinks to a local cabaret bar called Lackadaisy, thus the name of the show. Can't say that I'm very intrigued by the premise, but I'd definitely watch it if it became a series. It just looks really good and I got some dark Zootopia vibes, to be honest. If Zootopia was made for adults. And by the way, Zootopia is my favorite Disney cartoon of recent years. I must also note that the pilot looked a little too dark to me, or maybe it's my TV settings. I don't know, but everything else looks fine on my TV, so I think the problem is in the pilot episode after all. Maybe if the filter was different, it could look better. Judging by how popular this pilot was, by the time I'm writing my script it has over 8 million views on YouTube, which isn't bad of course. It will be picked eventually by a distributor, just like Has Been Hotel, which was picked by A24 in August 2020, 10 months after the pilot episode was released on YouTube. And we're just getting Hotel Has Been this summer, 3.5 years after, so there is absolutely no certainty in regard to Lackadaisy. One of my favorite things about the pilot is that at some point we can clearly see the lines that are used when drawing characters. I'm inclined to believe that this was a creative choice rather than an animating mistake, which could also happen obviously. It makes animation look more alive, more real, and reminds us that it was drawn by talented artists. Anyway, I do hope Lackadaisy will find a distributor and a streaming service like Has Been Hotel. And why not A24 again? That would be great, I think. In the meantime, I'll probably familiarize myself with the source material. Hopefully it's good.